In the year 2000, Hyundai Group was the largest conglomerate in South Korea. Its founder, Chung Ju-young, was the mastermind behind it all, the main character of a true rags-to-riches story. And by the turn of the century, all eyes were on Chung. Who would inherit the corporate colossus? Who was going to succeed the throne of what was the most powerful company in the country? With 6 surviving sons, it was a ticking time bomb that could rip apart not just the family, but its 60-plus subsidiaries and over 200,000 employees. And it did. This is a story of the succession crisis at Hyundai Group in the pivotal years of the company. This is a story of familial betrayal, political scandals, and dreams turned nightmares. This is the story of the collapse of an empire and the rise of another from its ashes. In 1997, South Korea was in turmoil. The country was gripped by the Asian financial crisis, a crisis exacerbated by an opaque economic system that encouraged the proliferation of dynastic conglomerates, the chaebols. And on the top of the rankings was the Hyundai Group. The Hyundai Motor Company that we know today was a mere subsidiary at the time. Hyundai started out as a modest construction company in 1947 and went through explosive expansion in the 60s and the 70s under the charismatic leader Chung Ju-young. The Hyundai Group now held no less than 60 affiliate companies, an omnipresent name that pervaded into everyday lives of Koreans. One of the ways in which Hyundai, along with most chaebols, was able to expand their businesses to such a degree was the strong government ties they leveraged in all of their major transactions. Companies were heavily incentivized to take on risky acquisitions, as the government, which controlled the financial sector of the country, was able to underwrite such aggressive moves. This brought explosive economic growth in the past decades, with chaebols competing to acquire and expand into unrelated businesses to enlarge their company size and assets. But then in 1997, everything came crashing down. That year, Kia Motors filed for bankruptcy, a disastrous consequence of an irresponsible expansionary policy. And soon, a chain of chaebols, once thought too big to fail, followed suit. People lost their jobs and some their lives. The government resorted to extreme measures, the International Monetary Fund. South Korea accepted a bail of $55 billion from the IMF in 1997, but this loan came with a long list of stipulations. The IMF, a borderless bank that loans out to struggling countries, dictated that government intervention in economic activities must cease. No more underwriting risky acquisitions, no more subsidizing loss-generating companies. Let the market decide, not the politicians. On top of that, the new Kim Dae-jung administration was pushing their chaebol reform, which urged Hyundai to provide transparency in their management and consolidate their businesses. This meant splitting the Hyundai Group into smaller groups, which would de-escalate the risk of a single affiliate company taking down the whole group. But the real crisis was just waiting around the corner. Chung Ju-young was turning 81. People began to wonder, who was going to succeed him? And this was not going to be a simple matter. Chung had 8 sons, but the eldest, Chung Mong-pil, had died in a car crash, and his 4th son, Chung Mong-woo, committed suicide after suffering a long-term depression. This left Chung with 6 sons, and he began working on splitting his Hyundai Group, granting each of his sons and nephews a piece of the conglomerate. But as the chairman's health deteriorated, he retired from his chairman position, becoming the honorary chairman. And in 1996, the chairman's seat was given to Chung Ju-young's 2nd son, Chung Mong-gu. Most believed that Chung Mong-gu, the now surviving eldest child, would inherit the parent group, and he himself believed it too. He was now the eldest. It was his birthright. He had even served a prison sentence in his father's stead. But the honorary chairman had other ideas. It was no secret that he had favored his fifth son, Jung Mong-hun. As someone who only had elementary education, Jung Ju-young was particularly fond of Mong-hun's higher education and his ability to negotiate in English with fluency.
Mong-hun's business acuity was also regarded highly and was placed in charge of the electronics branch of Hyundai in 1984.
And in 1998, Jung Ju-young granted Jung Mong-hun a co-chairman role at Hyundai Group, alongside Jung Mong-gu. The seeds of the succession conflict were sown. In addition, Jung Ju-young decided to give Mong-hun the most prestigious business, the Hyundai Construction, where everything began. As for Mong-gu, he would receive the Hyundai Motor Company. This left a bitter taste in Mong-gu's mouth. The Hyundai Motor Company, while symbolic to the Hyundai brand, was not seen as prestigious as the branches that were granted to his younger brother. As the eldest surviving child, he expected a much bigger piece of the pie, if not the entire group. And his father's abrupt change in his stance began to worry him. The tides were in his brother's favor, and he wasn't going to stand down without a fight. He was going to take over the Hyundai Group. On March 14, 2000, Jung Mong-gu made the first move. What would later be called the War of the Princes had begun. While Jung Mong-hun was abroad as part of his business trip, Mong-gu called for a surprise board meeting.
The topic of discussion was the president of Hyundai Securities, Lee Chi. Hyundai Securities was one of the only affiliates turning a profit, but more importantly, Lee was a supporter of Mong-hun.
In this meeting, Mong-gu unilaterally decided to transfer Lee's position to Korea Construction Company, a relatively insignificant affiliate. By removing Lee from Hyundai Securities, Mong-gu attempted to hit two birds with one stone. He would remove a powerful ally of Mong-hun while taking control of a robust Hyundai subsidiary, and thus putting him at an advantage for the coming succession war. Alarmed by the news, Mong-hun returned to South Korea. On March 24th, just 10 days after Mong-gu's ambush, Mong-hun called for his own board meeting. A significant difference with Mong-hun's meeting was the presence of Kim Jae-soo, the executive of corporate restructuring department of Hyundai. Per Hyundai's corporate protocols, any type of restructuring, including the transfer of employees' positions, had to go through Kim Jae-soo's department, or so they argued.
Mong-hun, along with the members of the meeting, nullified the decision made by Mong-gu 10 days earlier,
reinstating Lee as the chairman of Hyundai Securities. But Mong-hun wouldn't end it there. He also called for the dismissal of Mong-gu as the co-chairman of the Hyundai Group,
a crippling blow to Mong-gu.
In a single move, Mong-hun had taken his brother's most powerful card he had.
The next morning, Mong-gu didn't go to work. Recovering from his heavy drinking the night prior, he told his chauffeur to drive to Gwaedong, his father's new mansion. He had to discuss what his brother had just done to him. Perhaps his father could turn things around. The honorary chairman was technically no longer managing the company, but his words carried far more weight than anyone in the group. He was often referred to as the king chairman, and his words were final. If Mong-gu could get a signed letter from his father that could reverse Mong-hun's decision, he could live to fight another day. What happened inside the mansion for the next 4 days is based mostly on a book written by Kim Si-rae, the reporter who probed the crisis for over 5 years, with interviews including the eyewitnesses of guards and housekeepers of Jung Ju-young's mansion. On the morning of March 25th, Mong-gu entered his father's mansion in the hopes of speaking with his father alone. He would accept his defeat if his father confirmed it, but he knew he could convince his father to reverse the decision. What he didn't know was the network of agents Mong-hun's faction had planted in his father's mansion. When Mong-gu entered through the gates, Mong-hun was immediately alerted by the guard who witnessed Mong-gu walking in. Alarmed, Mong-hun sprinted out of his office, jumped into the car, and drove to his father's mansion. A mere 14 minutes after Mong-gu walked in, Mong-hun appeared at the front door, accompanied by Kim Yun-gyu, the executive of Hyundai Construction and Mong-hun's confidant. Monggu's plan to speak to his father alone was ruined. The father, with his two sons, had lunch in awkward silence, and after the meal, Monggu got up and left. The next day, on March 26th, Monggu visited his father again. It was the best card he had. This time, Monghan was not available. According to Kim Yoon-gyu, Monghan's confidant, he was at the mansion early to ensure Monggu couldn't speak with the honorary chairman alone. The three once again ate in silence. And at around 11 a.m., Monggu left. But upon leaving, Monggu immediately called his executives for a meeting. And later that day, he announced a surprise press conference. The press was invited to the Joseon Hotel at 2:30 p.m. This hotel was an odd choice, as Hyundai had always held press conferences at their own headquarters. But the Hyundai building was under Hyundai Construction's control, which was in turn under Monghan's control. There was no way Monghan would have allowed a press conference led by Monggu to happen under his nose. Hyundai Motor Company, on the other hand, did not have a building of its own. Monggu was a billionaire's equivalent of being homeless. During the press conference, a senior Hyundai Motors executive revealed a signed paper which stated that the decision Monghan made to dismiss Monggu was reversed. We've received the approval from the honorary chairman Jung Ju-young this morning at 11 a.m. Monggu was to co-lead the Hyundai Group alongside Monghan after all. But then at 5:50 p.m., Monghan's faction hosted their own emergency press conference, this time at the Hyundai headquarters. Here, Kim Jae-soo stated that after checking in with the honorary chairman, whatever Monggu was claiming was not true. Monghan was the sole chairman of the Hyundai Group. Within the span of just 3 hours, the public was being told two conflicting announcements. Confusion swept across the conference floor, and the reporters began pouring out the questions. Who are we supposed to believe? Which one of these signatures are real? These questions also reflected the confusion and the panic amongst the investors and the public. This continued tug of war between the two brothers only served to undermine Hyundai's value and trust. And they did. Cracks began to form across Hyundai's subsidiaries. The one that had the worst of it was Monghan's Hyundai Construction. The company was already in fiscal trouble before the succession crisis took hold. Hyundai needed to stabilize the situation in one way or another. The next day, Hyundai Group announced a board meeting in its headquarters. Attendance was not optional. The honorary chairman Jung Ju-young himself was set to appear at the meeting to put an end to the fiery crisis that would take down the entire group in its flames. The now 83-year-old man announced the following: the Hyundai Group will be led by Jung Mong-hun. That was it. Monggu's bid for the throne had come to an end. The feud that lasted 13 days was stamped down with the word of just one man. Jung Mong-gu accepted his defeat. He returned to his post at Hyundai Motor Company and decided to concentrate on strengthening what he had. For decades, Hyundai cars were known as cheap cars built cheaply. Quality control was out of the window, as the founder's priority was to increase sales by making cheap cars. But this strategy began to backfire in the early 90s, leading to a massive recall of 900,000 Hyundai Excels. The first thing on Monggu's mind was to rebuild Hyundai's reputation. But to increase quality, the company needed cash, which from the chaos of his own struggle against his brother and the Asian financial crisis was depressingly low. And turning to his brother for aid was out of the question. He needed foreign investments. The following weeks after his loss at the Succession War, Monggu kept himself busy working to find foreign investors and export deals. A rumor began to surface that Daimler Chrysler was interested in purchasing a significant share in Hyundai Motor Company. If the deal went through, Monggu would be able to begin restructuring his company without the need of the support of his parent company and its numerous affiliates. It was as though all was settled. Hyundai Motor Company was due to exit the Hyundai Group in June. Monggu ceded the Hyundai Group's chairman position. He was going to carve out his own empire, a new beginning. But no. On May 25th, Jung Ju-young announced a purchase of 6.8% shares of Hyundai Motor Company after selling his shares in other Hyundai subsidiaries. A plan to increase it to 9% in the future was added in the statement. The reason stated by Hyundai's PR department was that it was to protect their voting power with potential foreign investments on the horizon. But Mong-gu sensed something more sinister was going on behind the scenes. Why would his father suddenly sell off his shares of his brother's companies, but buy his? Jung Ju-young sold his 4.1% shares in Hyundai Construction and 2.7% in Hyundai Merchant Marine, making Jung Mong-han the largest individual shareholder in each of these subsidiaries. He also sold 11.1% in Hyundai Heavy Industries, which made his sixth son, Jung Mong-jun, the largest individual shareholder of Heavy Industries. But by buying 9% of Hyundai Motor Company, Jung Ju-young actually became its largest shareholder, surpassing Mong-gu. And since Mong-han effectively controlled the parent Hyundai Group, and his father has time and time again shown favor for Mong-han, it was seen as Mong-han attempting to retain control of Mong-gu's car company by leveraging his father's immense share. And before anyone could respond to the surprise announcement, on May 31st, Jung Ju-young released a statement that shook the nation. Jung Ju-young, along with his two sons, Jung Mong-gu and Mong-han, would resign completely from their duties. It was a means to appease the government officials and the creditor banks that was pressuring the Hyundai family to release the companies from their grasp. Mong-han accepted the decision, resigning from his post at all of his Hyundai subsidiaries save Hyundai Asan, a business focused on North Korean projects. But for Mong-gu, the announcement made no sense. His car company had actually been doing well, turning profits and making foreign deals. He even had the support of his own board. There was no need for him to resign. The problems Hyundai Group were facing were largely under companies owned by Mong-han. So when the announcement came, it was seen as a carefully orchestrated attempt by Jung Mong-han to completely remove Mong-gu from the picture. Jung Mong-gu rejected the decision made by the honorary chairman. The prince had revolted against the king. Following the announcement, Mong-gu once again put his head down and traveled across the Pacific for international partners in an attempt to strengthen his position at Hyundai Motor Company. Then on June 25th, Mong-gu held a press conference at the Hyundai headquarters, announcing a formal partnership agreement with Daimler Chrysler. He was one step closer to separating from his brother's grasp. But on the same day, Jung Ju-young finalized the planned purchase of his shares in Hyundai Motor Company, raising it to 9.1%. Neither side seemed to give way. But this began to draw the attention of the government. The cash flow within Hyundai Group's subsidiaries, particularly those under Mong-han's control, did not show any signs of improvement. And this latest move by Jung Ju-young was seen as attempting to seize control of Hyundai Motor Company, which contradicted their earlier promise of relinquishing control of their businesses. In an attempt to appease both the government officials and to inject fresh cash into Mong-han's Hyundai Construction, Jung Ju-young reluctantly sold off his shares in Mong-gu's car division, taking the proceeds to buy Hyundai Construction bonds. Finally, on August 31st, the Hyundai Motor Company had completely separated from its former parent group. This marked the beginning of the car company's second life, moving past the cheaply made economic cars to quality, affordable cars that would rival the best of Japan and Europe, the Hyundai Motor Group. This was once again contrasted by the continued financial troubles at Hyundai Group under Mong-han. Just 6 months after resigning by his father's orders, Mong-han had returned to his post at Hyundai Group as its chairman. The pressure was on Mong-han to turn things around. Then in 2001, Jung Ju-young died. Jung Ju-young was born in Tongcheon County of Gangwon Province. Today it's part of North Korea. After his retirement from Hyundai Group in 1993, Chung displayed unusual fervor in conducting business in North Korea. Some say it was his nostalgic memory of his hometown, while others say he saw it as a potential business breakthrough during the financial crisis. Either way, North Korea became a central focus in his later years. And Chung Mong-han was a core figure in aiding Jung Ju-young in his North Korean projects, serving as the executive of Hyundai Asan, a branch of Hyundai that dealt with such projects. It was one of the reasons people claimed why Mong-han was favored by Jung Ju-young over his other sons. And when Jung Ju-young died in March of 2001, Mong-han reaffirmed his commitment to his father's unfulfilled dream, establishing an industrial partnership between the South and the North. But having to juggle both the internal financial crisis at Hyundai Group and the external political tension with North Korea was pushing his capacity to the limit. Meanwhile, Mong-gu was striding in success after success. Unlike his brother, Mong-gu never resigned from his post as the chairman of his company. He also withdrew any and every plan that involved North Korea since his father's passing. He focused on what generated profit. Under Mong-gu's leadership, Hyundai adopted a quality-first mantra, establishing quality control systems across its production stages. They revealed a brand new SUV, Santa Fe, into their model lineup, significantly boosting their sales in the North American market. And in October of 2002, Hyundai Motor Group announced its successful entry into the highly sought-after Chinese market via its new joint venture, the Beijing Hyundai Motor Company. Their focus on quality paid off, with the company setting record sales month after month. It was a stark contrast to Mong-han's now precarious Hyundai Group. Mong-han watched on as pieces of his father's legacy were sold off to creditor banks. Chung's dream of a North Korean industrial partnership was slipping further and further away. But things were about to get worse. In June of 2002, a conservative politician, Ho-sung, publicly accused the Kim Dae-jung administration of an illegal cash transfer to North Korea. What was initially seen as an unsubstantiated attack, it caught on like a wildfire. In the investigations that followed, it was discovered that Mong-han's Hyundai Group had indeed transferred upwards of $500 million to North Korea, with the aid of the South Korean government and its National Intelligence Service. Pyongyang had demanded cash for granting Hyundai Asan preferential business contracts, and the Kim Dae-jung administration saw this inter-Korean business as a key part of their reconciliation policy, and therefore agreed to carry out the secret cash transfer. But the illegality of the cash transfers and the fact that it happened just before the historic summit between the two Koreas fanned the flames of the scandal even more. It not only proved detrimental to Kim Dae-jung's so-called sunshine policy, it also dealt the final blow to Mong-han's Hyundai Group. As a central figure in the $500 million scandal, Mong-han was implicated in additional corruption charges on slush funds sent to government officials. Isolated from his siblings and with the Hyundai Group in tatters, the North Korean business dream Mong-han had inherited from his father turned into a nightmare. In the late evening of August 3rd, 2003, Mong-han went to his office. The security guards were told that he was going to return downstairs in just a few minutes. He didn't. The next day, amidst the broken branches of a pine tree, a body was found next to the Hyundai headquarters building. It was Mong-han's. The death of Mong-han marked the end to a bitter feud between the Chung brothers. What was left of the Hyundai Group went over to Mong-han's widow, its former glory nowhere to be seen. What was once ranked first in the chaebol list, Hyundai Group was now a mid-sized entity. Chung Mong-gu, the son cast aside by his father, considered unfit to lead Hyundai into a globalized future, now held the largest Hyundai company in Korea. He turned what was once known for cheap and unreliable cars into an automotive juggernaut. By 2010, Hyundai Motor Group became the fourth largest car manufacturer by sales volume. The same year, time came for Mong-gu to settle the succession of his father's fabled legacy. Hyundai Construction,
The company that had started the Hyundai story was now up for acquisition. Hyundai Group, still run by Mong-hun's widow, was selected as the preferred negotiator and signed a MOU with Hyundai Construction for the acquisition. But the issues surrounding the loan Hyundai Group had received from a foreign bank to acquire Hyundai Construction became a turning point for the bidding process. Hyundai Construction requested the details of the loan agreement, which they believed weren't disclosed properly. Hyundai Construction ended up invalidating the MOU altogether, with the court ruling in their favor. The bidding process thus went to the next in line, Monggu's Hyundai Motor Group. In 2011, Monggu finalized the acquisition of Hyundai Construction. With this, Monggu announced his Hyundai Motor Group as the proper successor to his father's legacy, the true victor of the War of the Princes. While the name Hyundai traces its roots to pre-Korean War, the rise of Hyundai Motor Group as we know today can be attributed to Jung Monggu. He has since handed the reins to the conglomerate to his son, Jung Ui-sun, the force behind Hyundai's renewed interest in motorsports. Despite these exciting developments, I cannot help but look back on the succession crisis that happened over 20 years ago, which was a mere symptom of a broken system. Despite the efforts to reform the chaebols and the private sector, these industrial dynasties still dominate the upper echelon of South Korea. And with so much wealth concentrated on individuals, it is not surprising to see that Hyundai was not unique in suffering such a crisis. If anything, we'll see more of it. Thank you for watching this video. I've tried something a little different today, diving deep into a particular event that changed the course of a brand so ubiquitous in the automotive landscape. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as plenty more are in the pipelines. And I'll see you on the next one.